the power move that shocked the world. A moment that was meant to be ceremonial turned into an international controversy. As Air Force One touched down in a high-stakes European capital, the world braced for what should have been a standard diplomatic welcome. Donald Trump, the ever-polarizing yet commanding presence, stepped off the aircraft, ready to be received with the traditional diplomatic gestures of respect. But what happened next left the world stunned. The First Lady of the host nation, rather than extending her hand to the U.S. president, did the unthinkable. She walked right past him. Her attention? Focused entirely on Karoline Leavitt, the rising conservative powerhouse standing beside Trump. Cameras flashed, dignitaries exchanged shocked glances, and the silence that followed felt deafening. Had Trump just been publicly slighted? Was this an intentional political maneuver? And most importantly, how would Karoline react? The answer: she didn't just react, she countered. In a move that turned the snub into a symbol of strength, Karoline seized control of the moment, shifting the balance of power before the world's eyes. What followed was a cascade of media frenzy, geopolitical speculation, and a reshaping of diplomatic perception. Was this an innocent faux pas, or a calculated power play? And did Karoline Leavitt just solidify herself as the new face of conservative leadership? Stay with us, because this moment is more than a headline. It's a turning point. And as history has shown, those who control the narrative control the future. The arrival, a moment meant for history. A grand entrance. The world holds its breath. Air Force One, its silhouette unmistakable against the golden hue of the setting sun, descends onto the tarmac of one of Europe's most politically charged capitals. The air hums with anticipation. Every camera lens zooms in, every journalist poised, every spectator bracing for what will soon unfold. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken tension. As the aircraft door swings open, Donald Trump emerges, exuding the unshakable confidence of a man who has faced both admiration and controversy in equal measure. Flanked by key members of his delegation, including diplomats, military officials, and economic advisors, his presence alone is enough to command attention. But today, there is another figure at his side who seems to have already caught the eye of the global audience. Karoline Leavitt, the rising conservative firebrand, steps onto the European soil with the poised determination of someone who knows this is no ordinary diplomatic mission. Her inclusion in this delegation is no coincidence. She represents the new wave of conservative leadership, bold, articulate, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. This is more than just a meeting of world leaders. It's a moment that could redefine alliances, shape economic strategies, and alter the course of global power structures for years to come. The unexpected snub, and then the moment of rupture. As Trump approaches the welcoming party, a carefully orchestrated ceremony designed to honor diplomatic protocol, all eyes shift to the First Lady of the host nation. Tradition dictates she should be the first to extend her hand to the visiting president. It is a sign of respect, a symbol of diplomatic goodwill. But something is off. Instead of greeting Trump, the First Lady pivots smoothly, her elegant figure bypassing him entirely. The air turns cold in an instant. The pause that follows is almost imperceptible, but to those watching, it feels like an eternity. And then it happens. She extends her hand, not to Trump, but to Karoline Leavitt. A calculated move? A diplomatic oversight? Or an intentional statement to the world? Every detail matters now. The cameras capture everything. The subtle twitch of an ambassador's eyebrow, the murmurs among high-ranking officials, the way Karoline's face remains composed even as the weight of the moment presses upon her. Trump's hand, initially extended in expectation, lingers for a fraction of a second too long before he slowly retracts it. The silence that follows is almost unbearable. But the First Lady? She smiles. Not at Trump, at Karoline. Gasps and shockwaves. The world doesn't blink. It stares. There's a collective inhale from the gathered officials, journalists, and dignitaries. It is not just a misstep in etiquette, it is a message, and it is deafening. The ripple effect is immediate. Cameras whir as journalists scramble to capture every angle of the scene. News anchors rush to their microphones. Social media ignites in real time, with clips spreading across platforms before the delegation even reaches their motorcade. Did she really just do that? Is this a deliberate power play? What does this mean for U.S. relations? Conspiracies form in seconds. Analysts rush to interpret the gesture. Commentators speculate on the deeper significance. And Karoline? She knows she has just been thrust into the center of a geopolitical storm, one that will test her resolve, her principles, and her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of international diplomacy. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. This is no longer just a meeting. It's a spectacle, a turning point, and the world is watching. Karoline's calculated response. The power shift. The room, grand and suffocating under the weight of global scrutiny, holds its breath. The moment stretches, a silent yet thunderous clash of wills. Karoline doesn't flinch. Not even a flicker of hesitation betrays her resolve. Instead of basking in the unexpected attention, she turns slightly, not towards the cameras, nor the murmuring diplomats, but directly to Trump. The message is clear. She knows exactly what just happened, and she knows exactly how to turn it to their advantage. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touches the corner of her lips. It isn't arrogance. It's control. The First Lady's maneuver was meant to diminish, to subtly displace. But Karoline understands something that her opponent has overlooked. The power of perception belongs not to the one who acts, but to the one who dictates how the act is perceived. And in that moment, Karoline seizes it. A return of dignity. Every motion is calculated, every second stretched to maximize impact. She takes the First Lady's hand, firm, controlled, no sign of deference. The handshake is brief, businesslike, a mere formality. But what follows is the true masterstroke. Karoline doesn't linger. She steps aside with a deliberate, graceful motion, pivoting just enough to shift the attention back to its rightful owner. A poised hand extends, not toward herself, but toward Trump. The weight of the moment presses down on the First Lady, who suddenly finds herself outmaneuvered in the very game she initiated. "Mr. President," Karoline says, her voice measured, her tone carrying just the right blend of respect and assertion. There is no need for embellishment. The unspoken truth reverberates through the air. This moment was never yours to take. The First Lady, caught in an unintentional trap of her own making, now stands at a disadvantage. In her attempt to sideline, she has become the one sidelined. The optics are devastating. The press catches everything. The cameras miss nothing. The diplomatic insult, the counterstrike, the sudden shift in dominance, all of it captured in real time, analyzed by every pair of eyes in the room and millions beyond it. The moment is already being clipped, replayed, slowed down for effect. Journalists exchange knowing glances, editors scramble to rewrite headlines, pundits prepare their takes. Within minutes, the internet erupts. Reactions pour in, some framing it as a rebuke of arrogance, others as a display of unwavering loyalty. But one thing is undeniable. Karoline Leavitt just rewrote the script. As the room exhales and the event carries on, one question lingers. Who really won this exchange? The answer will be debated for days, but one fact remains unshakable. Karoline has left an indelible mark on the world stage, and everyone is watching what she'll do next. The global fallout media frenzy, the power of perception. By the time the delegation reaches the meeting venue, the footage has already exploded across social media. Within minutes, conservative outlets flood the internet with praise, hailing Karoline Leavitt's reaction as a masterclass in turning disrespect into dominance. "This is how a real leader responds," proclaims one headline, while another calls it a defining moment in modern diplomacy. But the progressive media isn't about to let this moment slip by without a counter-narrative. Trump humiliated on the world stage, one network declares, dissecting every frame of the clip. They paint the incident as a symbolic fall from grace, proof that the former president no longer commands the same fear or deference he once did. Meanwhile, Twitter, or X, as it is now called, turns into a battlefield. Memes flood the timeline, some turning Karoline into a conservative icon, others ridiculing Trump for needing her to defend him. The hashtag #, diplomatic disrespect trends worldwide, splitting opinions down ideological lines. But the real question lingers in the air like an unresolved chord. Was this an innocent oversight, or a deliberate, calculated move meant to send a message? Backlash from the host nation, a crisis in the making. The host country's officials are in full damage control mode. Behind closed doors, aides scramble to formulate a response before the situation spirals further. Every diplomatic faux pas has consequences, but this one? It threatens to redefine international relationships overnight. A carefully worded statement is released within the hour. There was no intended slight. The First Lady was simply greeting an honored guest in the delegation. But few buy it. The footage is too clear, too deliberate, too perfectly timed to be dismissed as an accident. The First Lady's pause, the way her gaze briefly flickers past Trump before settling on someone else, it all reeks of intent. The opposition within the host nation seizes the moment, using it as a talking point to question their own government's diplomatic standing. Protests stir in the capital. Editorials dissect the implications. Some argue that the nation should distance itself from Trumpism entirely. Others say that such a bold move could backfire catastrophically. And then, an unexpected twist. A leak. An anonymous source, supposedly from within the host government, hints that this moment was orchestrated as a subtle diplomatic pushback against Trump's foreign policies. Suddenly, the narrative shifts from embarrassment to international strategy. Was this really about Trump? Or was Karoline's intervention the only thing preventing a larger political crisis? White House reaction. A crossroads in strategy. Back in Washington, the West Wing is in chaos. Staffers argue behind closed doors, voices rising as they debate their next move. Do they escalate? Do they retaliate? Or do they let the moment play out? Some argue for a formal complaint, insisting that a line was crossed. Others believe Trump himself should address the snub, turn the slight into an even bigger spectacle, and rally his base. But the third option is perhaps the most intriguing. Do nothing. Karoline's response has already gone viral. The conservative base is more energized than ever. Every second the footage circulates, it solidifies her status as a rising powerhouse in the movement. A fresh face, unshaken by political theater, able to hold her own on an international stage. One advisor leans in, voice measured, eyes sharp. This isn't about the First Lady's greeting anymore. This is about power. And right now, we have it. A decision looms, but one thing is certain. The world is watching. Karoline versus the establishment televised clashes, the battle for narrative control. Night falls, but the debate is just beginning. Karoline enters the studio of one of the country's largest television networks, surrounded by spotlights and cameras capturing every detail. The host, a veteran at unsettling guests, fires the first question without hesitation. Karoline, was it intentional? Did you want to humiliate the First Lady in front of the world? The silence in the studio is palpable. The live audience holds its breath, waiting for a slip-up, a moment of hesitation. But Karoline doesn't even blink. With a controlled smile, she replies, her voice firm but without arrogance. I didn't make anyone look bad. Actions speak for themselves. Respect is not a one-way street. Those who show disdain must be ready to face the consequences. Political analysts in the commentary room exchange glances. The game has changed. In a calculated move, Karoline seizes control of the narrative, turning the attack into a symbol of resistance. The host tries to counterattack, but she has already won over the audience. The online storm. The debate erupts on social media. Minutes after the interview, social media catches fire. Videos of Karoline's response spread like wildfire. Twitter, the epicenter of the cultural battle, witnesses a new trend emerge. Respect is a two-way street. Supporters see a warrior. Finally, someone who won't bow to political correctness. Critics launch accusations. This is just another media stunt to inflame the masses. Progressive outlets attempt to label Karoline as manipulative, someone who fabricated conflict to gain prominence. But the right sees something different. A leader emerging from the chaos. Someone unafraid of confrontation. Influencers and journalists clash in live streams, political analyses, and podcasts. Every frame of the interview is dissected, every nuance interpreted. Polarization reaches extreme levels, but one thing is certain. No one ignores Karoline Leavitt. Trump and the silent approval, the weight of a single word. As the country debates, Trump remains enigmatic. No interviews, no official statements, until, without warning, a retweet changes everything. The former president shares the clip of Karoline's response with a single word. Unbelievable. The word echoes among his millions of followers. For those familiar with his style, the message is clear. This was not just a sharp reply, it was a defining moment that established Karoline as a defender of national dignity. The political elite and mainstream media try to downplay the impact, but the numbers don't lie. Karoline didn't just defend Trump. She became the embodiment of a new combative spirit, someone who refuses to be intimidated. And the establishment realizes she will not back down. The long-term consequences, diplomatic ramifications. The conference room was silent, but the tension was almost palpable. Had this incident been a colossal failure or an unexpected strategic move? The host nation's leaders gathered behind closed doors, exchanging sharp glances and hushed conversations. Public statements attempted to downplay the impact, but the truth was undeniable. The moment had already been broadcast to millions around the world. Now diplomats were asking themselves, would this spark a deeper crisis, or was it merely a temporary setback? Behind the scenes, two camps emerged. Those who saw the episode as a diplomatic blunder that required immediate damage control, and those who, secretly, admired Karoline Leavitt's audacity. In Washington, the State Department scrambled to assess the fallout. A single misstep could shift geopolitical dynamics, yet there was an unforeseen variable in play. Karoline. Her name was no longer confined to conservative circles. Now, political analysts from across the spectrum were trying to decipher her role in the evolving global order. Her critics were uneasy. What if, instead of a mistake, she had become an unexpected symbol of diplomatic strength? The political future of Karoline Leavitt. By the next morning, the headlines were unanimous. Something had changed. Karoline Leavitt was no longer just an influential voice within the Republican Party. She had become a central figure in the national political narrative. Inside the GOP, whispers turned into serious discussions. Some suggested that this moment had sealed her fate. A future vice presidential pick. Or perhaps something even bigger. Karoline's meteoric rise drew historical comparisons. To some, she was the new face of American conservatism. To others, she was a force that needed to be contained before she became unstoppable. But the real question wasn't just about her political future. It was about how she would wield this moment to her advantage. Would she double down, challenging the establishment even further? Or would she position herself as a strategic player, carefully choosing her next move? Regardless of the answer, one thing was certain. She had crossed the point of no return. Now, all eyes were on her. The closing question. The viral moment continued to spread, not just among political analysts but across social media and dinner table discussions. Polarization was inevitable. Was it a breach of protocol or a calculated maneuver? Was the First Lady's gesture a deliberate sign of disrespect, or merely an unintentional slip? And, more importantly, did Karoline act on impulse, or did she know exactly what she was doing? The debate had become a litmus test for the new political era. If diplomacy was once built on carefully rehearsed gestures, it now seemed that a single unscripted moment had the power to rewrite the rules of the game. Social media exploded with theories. Experts from both sides tried to predict the long-term consequences. But in the end, one question remained. Was this the turning point that would redefine the future of global power? What do you think? Was this a diplomatic blunder or a calculated attack? A mere oversight or a high-stakes chess move? Did Karoline's response cement her legacy as a formidable leader? Or was this all just political theater, designed to manipulate public perception? The lines between strategy and chaos have never been thinner. History is written by those who seize the moment, but whose version will prevail? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's debate. Brilliance or disaster? And if you crave more stories that challenge perspectives, expose hidden motives, and make you question everything, hit that subscribe button. Because the next twist might change everything you thought you knew.